Hey everybody, so a few days ago, Christmas Day, my brother-in-law drove this car and drove to the gas station. Everything was fine. I got back in the car and allegedly all the gears stopped shifting into place. So inside the car, when he was trying to shift, there was just resistance on every gear. There's no way to get it into place. So we went through a bunch of stuff, and pretty much the culprit was this gear shift mechanism that sits right on top of the transmission. And the way it works is, this is the old one. So here are the gates. Got your fifth gear, reverse, fourth, fifth, third, fourth, second, first, reverse. And with these shift cables that are attached to your stick shift, it moves them into each gate. So what that does, when you go into a gear, is it pushes this right here in and out, and that shifts the forks on the transmission and shifts it into gear. So the culprit is this cheap bearing that snapped, and it was jamming the whole mechanism to where it couldn't move up and down, and also couldn't move into any gear. So waiting for this part, I messed around with this one. As you can see, there's still ball bearings falling out. Not great for your transmission, but just by kind of pushing it back into play, I at least got this to work somewhat. But this part, the new one, finally came, and I'm just going to show you guys what to do in reverse on how to put this in. But you know, it's kind of a pain, but this is a process I've done many times, so it wasn't too bad for me. But it does require taking off an engine mount and a few other things, but overall not the worst thing in the world. So if you're putting this part back in, there was some kind of seal material that was super brittle, and I'm not sure what it was. Couldn't find it anywhere online. So I just used gray gasket maker. I've used it on multiple other things and it's worked great. So you just put it around the perimeter, around all the bolt holes, and put it into place. So my car was stuck in neutral, so that's how all the forks were set up. So I just made sure when I put it in that it was in this middle gate, which is neutral, and you just kind of maneuver it into place around all these hoses and cables, whatnot, and these engine mount posts. And I've snugged up, I think it's 5 bolts, which you'll need a 10mm socket for, and I'll let that gasket maker dry for an hour, and then I'll torque it down and move on. So here you can kind of see the shift cable attachments. There's a button right here that you push in, and then you can just pop it off. It's just a ball socket. And there's another one on the side that's really hard to see. It's a black one, but it's the same thing, just a button and then a ball socket. So I got in the car already. Everything's hooked up enough to test it out, and I can shift back into every gear, so we're in good shape. yeah, I'll let that gasket maker dry and get back to you with the rest of it. Alright, so I torqued down all the bolts after an hour of drying for the gasket maker. Next thing that's going in is the support for the engine mount. There's 3 bolts. As you can see, 1, 2, and the third. And you'll need a 15mm socket. And there was red thread locker on these bolts, so I'll put some more of that on when I torque them down. Alright, now that the support for the engine mount is in, make sure you've connected your backup light switch. I also had to disconnect this major electrical connector, so connect that up again. And then you're off to the housing for the engine mount. So that's next. Hey everybody, so I got a little distracted while finishing up that video the other day. I think I left off on that housing for the engine mount, which is this black sheet metal plate. So pretty much the only thing that was left to do was put the engine mount back in, tighten the 4 perimeter bolts, and then with that 21mm nut, suck the engine back up into the mount, torque it all down. There's some little brackets you can put the cabling back onto. A few perimeter bolts, one here, one back here, and from there it's just the battery tray. Put the battery in and you're done. So just to describe this issue in a little more detail that I was having. So when my brother-in-law got back from the store, none of these gears would go into place. So I could move it in neutral back and forth, but as soon as I would go to put, first, second, third, fourth, fifth reverse in, none of them would go. Just resistance at every spot. So I disassembled this whole center console here just to make sure that the shift cables underneath weren't broken, jammed, disconnected, whatever. After doing that, they were all good. I disconnected them on the engine side, and I was able to shift through all these gears and visually see every cable moving. Another issue could have been the clutch, but I knew that wasn't it. There's plenty of resistance on my clutch. It wasn't just dropping to the floor. And I'd just driven it minutes before, and definitely no signs of it giving out. So after all those things, went through some diagrams and figured out the location of this gear shift housing, and just disassembled it, and that was the issue. So some people might think, oh crap, my transmission is effed, and either total the car, send it to a junkyard, pay tons of money to get it replaced, and it ended up being a $250 part at Ford, $160 if you get it online. So that was the issue. Feel free to leave any questions if you have any.